Founded 67 years ago, ICTV has been at the forefront of innovation in the college television space. Tonight, we'll take a look at all the things that make ICTV so special and some of the incredible history behind it. This is ICTV Special Reports. Welcome to ICTV Special Reports. I'm your host, Lindsay Peters. On March 3rd, 1958, a new television station by the name of WICB-TV hit the air on Channel 2, the local public access channel at the time, the first of its kind in the United States. It was built on the idea that student-run stations could provide real and impactful experiences in the world of TV broadcasting, while being a safe space to experiment and learn in a college setting. Now, 67 years later, ICTV still holds true to those values. Tonight, we'll take a look through present and past history to examine just a few things that make ICTV so special. Let's start with the past, when the station was first founded. Its current home, the Roy H. Park School of Communications, was not yet built. Our correspondent, Jack Bradway, took a look back at what went into building one of the most impactful and notable communication schools in the country.
The earliest communications classes at Ithaca College were held back in 1931, the same year the school officially became known as Ithaca College, rather than the Ithaca Conservatory of Music, the name it had been founded under. At this time, the campus was located downtown, and as the college grew and communications became a bigger department, they built and opened television and radio facilities on Buffalo Street in 1958. It was in those new facilities that ICTV was founded under the name WICB-TV. But despite these new facilities, the college's attention lay elsewhere. Just 2 years later, in 1960, ground broke on the first building of a new campus up on South Hill. After a frenzy of construction, in 1968, the communications department were the last ones to leave the downtown campus and move up the hill. For the next couple decades, they would reside in the basement of the new Dillingham Center. Over those coming decades, the School of Communications, which was officially recognized in 1973, continued to grow. I sat down with Dr. Tom Bone, who came to the school as its dean in 1980, to find out more about what the school and its programs were like at that time.
It was a radio television program, and the emphasis on radio first and television, because this was 1980, remember. And so it was a radio television program that was called a School of Communications. And it had film and photography and all of those good kinds of things as degree programs, but its primary emphasis was radio television. And that was okay, but it was fairly narrow. And as I looked at the world in 1980 and looked ahead a little bit, I could see that world changing and becoming something very different in the world of communications, and felt that we just needed to expand our profile, expand what we were doing, who we were doing it with.
By 1980, the School of Communications had been sharing the Dillingham Center with the Department of Theater Arts for more than a decade. The basement of a performing arts center wasn't the best place for a communications school.
No light, no windows. We had, I literally had, there were closets, there were offices. It was dark and damp and relatively depressing. The sun came in about once a year when it hit a certain part of the stairwell, and we all rejoiced. But it was a fairly limiting physical environment. And so we lived with that for 5, 6 years. And then we grew to the point where we were now at 800. We doubled the size of the school. We were at 800, maybe 1,000. We just couldn't live there anymore. And so we kind of made a proposal to the president, Jim Whalen, and he said, yeah, let's roll the dice. What we had to our advantage then is that we were able to plan the facility ahead of time. When we moved up from Buffalo, it was kind of, well, where the hell are we going to put these three things? And, well, let's throw them into the basement of the theater program in Dillingham. And it was, kind of a haphazard, fly-by-night kind of operation. It was fine, and it worked fine, and everyone had a good time, and we had terrific programming and terrific good facilities for the time. But when we now sat down and said, well, what do we want to be and do in a brand new building? How do we plan it? So we involved the faculty, we involved students, we involved alumni, and said, what do you want to see? And so we created facilities specifically for ICTV, VIC, and ICB-FM, and that made a huge difference. As we started discussing a new building and what it would cost and how we would fund it and where we would get the money, I mean, as most colleges and universities do, they look out for donors. They look for outside funds. I mean, it's difficult to fund anything like that internally. And President Whalen approached Roy and asked him if he would be interested in funding the building, and as for that gift, would have the building and the school named after him, which was a big deal. It's one thing to have a building. We have Park Hall, for example, the School of Business. This is Park Communications. This is the Park building, but it's the Roy Park School of Communications, and that's a much bigger deal. And Roy agreed, and we rolled the dice and built the building, and it was a major addition to the campus.
Roy H. Park had been a member of the college's Board of Trustees since 1973 and had been the board's chairman since 1981. With his funding, construction began in 1987 and the building was finished in 1989.
It was a smooth transition. It was the summer of '89. You know, it was a huge operation, and it took some getting used to. I mean, to get into a new building like you move into a new house and you're looking around for stuff and what do I do and how do I do it. But I thought, when I think back on it, I thought the transition was remarkably smooth. There were no real hiccups. And we discovered that we had pretty much done it right because we had planned from the ground up. We said to students, we said to faculty, we said to staff, what do you want? Dream. Tell us your dreams. Well, of course, we couldn't fund all of that we dreamed, but we had to start there. And it worked that way. And so when we moved in, there was, I think, a high level of satisfaction with what we were moving into from where we were. And then we figured it out. The first thing we figured out, the big mistake we made, is that we didn't have enough PEC space. We didn't have enough space for all of our equipment and our checkout equipment. So within a year of having built this building, we had to double that space. And that was, and you learn. You say, all of a sudden you say, oh, what the hell, what did we do wrong? Well, here, what's going on? And we know we needed so much more space for that. But everything else, it's worked out well.
The Park School has now been around for 36 years and has grown to be the biggest school at Ithaca College and one of the top communications schools in the country.
It stood the test of time. We could use an addition. We could use an upgraded facility, I think, in my opinion, but this building has stood the test of time in terms of its attractiveness and its usability.
In 2003, Dr. Bone retired as dean of the Park School. Since then, he's returned to teach part-time.
Yeah, it was a good ride. Yeah, and I think where we were in 1980 to where I left it in 2003, it was a good ride, a good developmental, organic ride forward. And then I look at what's happened in the 22 years since I've been gone, 2003 to 2025. And I also like what I've seen. I like where we're going and where we're headed and how we, again, the Park School has grown organically and changed and shifted with the times. And I think that's all been good.
For ICTV Special Reports, I'm Jack Bradway.
Thanks, Jack. Coming up, a look at some of ICTV Sports' incredible opportunities over the course of history. Stick with us. Welcome back. Every Sunday at 8 p.m., ICTV airs one of its few live sports shows, Sports Final. Unique to ICTV's sports department, Sports Final is the only show that covers all Ithaca sports, from Ithaca College to Cornell University, as well as local high schools. The creation of this program, however, was far from typical. It once started as a shortened segment on Newswatch and eventually blossomed into its own show that alums call one of the most rewarding experiences of their college career. Our correspondent, Devin Jarvis, has the story.
Welcome to another edition of Sports Finals.
In 2006, ICTV looked quite a bit different than it does today. Some shows no longer exist, and others looked quite different than they do now. But one sports show of today's ICTV, Sports Final, wasn't even a show that year. Only an extended segment on Sunday News Watch. That was until a group of students decided they wanted to make it into a full 30-minute program.
I guess the big thing about Sports Final is that it really kind of grew out of Newswatch. It was kind of, the sports segment, if you will, of news. But because they covered so much stuff in terms of Ithaca College athletics, Cornell University, but also local high school sports, it was too much to put into a traditional kind of sports segment within a newscast.
So before Sports Final existed in its 30-minute capacity, there was a show called Gridiron Report, and there was a show called Ithaca Sports Weekly. Gridiron Report was on Sunday nights in the fall semester, focused on the football team. And then we had Ithaca Sports Weekly in the spring semester to just kind of give that crew something else to work on Sunday nights. Around the time I was working on the show, someone had the idea of why don't, we have enough sports going on in the Ithaca area between Cornell sports and Ithaca sports. Why don't we just do a 30-minute show every week? We got people that want to get into sports production, people that want to, do all the work. So let's get a really, strong 30-minute show on the air. And that was kind of how Sports Final was born.
While there were a few bumps in the road along the inaugural season, Sports Final hit the ground running, and the passionate cast and crew had no cap to what their show could become.
Yeah, it really felt like everybody that was doing that show wanted to do what they were doing professionally once we got out of there. And I think we got everybody kind of on that same path at that same time. That wasn't just doing it to check a box and wasn't just doing it because they had their nights free on Sunday nights. It was because we all wanted to do what we were doing, and I think that kind of created a cool environment.
What Sports Final was doing was one of a kind for its time, tapping into all Ithaca sports, including Ithaca College, Cornell University, and local high school.
We covered so many things via radio and TV at Ithaca that we were the local sports voice to a certain extent.
And I think that was always the thing that impressed me the most, is the notion of wanting to include the local high schools within the Tompkins County area and being able to incorporate those kind of athletes and the sports within the guise of Sports Final.
Yeah, there was a gap in kind of that Ithaca market that we were able to cover. It wasn't always easy, especially on the high school end of things. The info wouldn't be great, and we'd be kind of running around trying to chase games.
The passion lended itself to learning, and everyone down from producers and hosts to PAs were able to take lessons from Sports Final.
It was just an amazing crash course to be at that age. You're learning about rundowns and time, writing, where to get highlights, which ones you need, who's going to shoot them.
And certainly Sports Final has gone through various iterations from when I first arrived here at Ithaca College. But one thing that's always been a constant is the passion that the students have had for producing that show. From a Sports Final standpoint, I saw that from the beginning in terms of, again, the amount of passion and dedication that students were putting into it.
As Luke, Brendan, and Ed became professionals in the industry, those lessons learned from Sports Final, they were able to use once they graduated.
I think working on Sports Final really allowed me to just take off running when I hit the industry. I started working at ESPN right out of college, and I was just kind of I felt much more confident in my skills and was just kind of a level above all the other people that were coming in at ESPN. It allowed me to get opportunities quicker and kind of advance quicker. And then, as I started becoming more of a producer and a supervising producer later on in my career, those same skills I was using kind of being sports director and executive producing Sports Final, I found myself utilizing every day.
That part of it is so huge for somebody that was in my role back then, it is in my role now, is to get that comfort level being on camera and live television.
All of these things that at the time feel like massive tasks, you're learning them at a very young age, where now it becomes second nature. But that was the beginning of it. And I think that's what made it cool.
Devin Jarvis from Ithaca College reporting for ICTV.
Thanks, Devin. Here at ICTV, we give our students every opportunity to cover important events, both locally and nationally. I had the opportunity to go to New Orleans this past February to Super Bowl Radio Row, where I met alumni who have come up through our program as well. For years, the Park School of Communications has been sending select students to Radio Row, which is the media week leading up to the Super Bowl. 5 Ithaca College students and myself were able to attend Radio Row in New Orleans this year. But it hasn't always looked the same. Each year, Radio Row evolves into a bigger and more extravagant event than it was prior. I had the chance to speak to alumni from Ithaca College who have attended Radio Row and get their perspective on how it's changed.
So it gets bigger every year, but I think the biggest change has been there are way more digital outlets that are there than radio stations. Now Radio Row is way less actual radio and it's way more podcast. It's way more just brands that are only known for social media that just have big Instagram followings or big followings on YouTube.
I think the New Orleans Convention Center is an anomaly. It feels like it's like a 5-mile long convention center. So there was so much more space in New Orleans, I think.
I believe, you could probably look this up, but I believe there were only 35 radio stations that were there. And, you know, they credentialed over like 200 outlets at Radio Row. I mean, count the amount of tables, and a lot of them weren't radio stations. So
I saw more TV setups for these national shows and even online broadcasts, more so in New Orleans than there were in Las Vegas, but there's still quite a few. I mean, it is a huge operation.
For these alumni, the time spent at Radio Row was something they will never forget.
it was the best week of my professional career and the best week of my college career when I think back to it.
It's really neat just to see the outlets, the different walks of life all there for Super Bowl week. I mean, it is a production for sure.
We were down there for the whole week, just hustling, trying to get interviews, and couldn't believe that we were actually there. I mean, I still think about it to this day every year when I get a chance to still, with my current jobs, go down to Radio Row. That is much fun as it is every year. Nothing will ever top just how much fun that first experience was, getting a chance to do it with my two closest friends from Ithaca.
And yeah, it was exactly kind of what I thought it would be. It was still a little overwhelming just to see so many outlets from all over the world, and it was really neat. Made sure to stop by the Ithaca College booth last year and this year, so go Bombers.
Along with the Park School creating these opportunities for students, we can't forget about the opportunities in that very building. ICTV and WICB have been around since before these alumni, and their experience with them has been nothing but memorable.
I was directing game shows, I was doing News Watch, any little thing that I could do TV-wise, I could do. I can't eat cheese pizza to this day because of all the gratis cheese pizza that we had after productions. I mean, we built the set for News Watch like before one semester, as one semester was getting started. Like, we really had a hand in everything.
Forever grateful for those opportunities because they were so much fun, and just working on those broadcasts with your best friends was the best. I mean, that's the thing. Like, a lot of people leave Ithaca and they have long careers in sports broadcasting, whatever they want to do, but you never get that opportunity to actually be coworkers with your closest friends. So that was so much fun, and something I still think about to this day.
It was neat to be a part of that. It is neat that it's a legacy that continues to this day, and I'm proud to say that I at least was a part of that. I was right on the edge where we were still doing tape-to-tape editing, and like we would do our projects and like the fancy stuff in Final Cut, but we were turning tape every day and running our packages to master control, while we're in the show to hit play and getting them queued up.
Cody and Jake both express how these shows were a huge help in shaping their careers.
Without them, we wouldn't have had the opportunity to go to the Super Bowl and kind of start what has been really cool to see all the Ithaca students since get the opportunity to go.
I think working on those shows helped prepare me for the real world, in that we went through all the stress that you could possibly go through in a television program, but learned how to deal with those and learned how to troubleshoot. What I really liked about it back then was that it really was just student run. And so we would have our editorial meeting and we would go out and do everything. And there wasn't much guidance. They trusted us, which was nice to be able to put something on the air.
Just wanted to thank them and the Park School for those memories, because here we are years later still talking about it.
I mean, when you're in IC, you do everything in front of and behind the camera. And I think that those skills do prepare you for the real world, and even more years later than I care to admit, being at Radio Row and being at the Super Bowl, I mean, you're trying to get those VOSOTs, you're trying to get that sound, throwing packages together quickly on the fly, skills that you learned at IC, just made better now because of the technology that we didn't have at the time.
In Ithaca, I'm Lindsay Peters, ICTV Special Reports. That was a trip and an experience I will never forget, and I'm so glad I got to share it with all of you. When we return, a look at how ICTV has challenged the gender gap in the media industry, plus how it prepares students for both success during and after their college careers. Stick with us. Welcome back to ICTV Special Reports. ICTV has provided students with vast opportunities, allowing them to grow, learn, and discover more about themselves. Ithaca College students are the backbone of this station, taking on every role, ranging from producers to directors, from camera operators to on-air talent. All of this hard work has paid off, accumulating a multitude of awards held by the station and the students who run it. Cece Gabriel has more on ICTV's award-winning history.
ICTV has over half a century of history, with hundreds who have been impacted by the station. Whether you're on-air talent or working behind the scenes, students spend hours in the basement honing their craft to take steps towards their future. No matter what step a student is at as a first year or a senior, it was the decision to come to Ithaca College where their journey in ICTV began.
I think a lot of different things brought me to the Park School. I think that when you go through the process, you look at all the big communications schools, the Arizona States, the Cuses, the Ithacas, and for me coming out of high school, I wanted to go somewhere where I could really continue to hone my craft and get on air.
When they say day one you're on, like truly, well, not day one maybe if we get into the technicalities, but like after you get to recruitment night and you get on those shows, you really are doing the thing that you are supposed to be doing.
I auditioned for ICTV because I thought it was going to be something fun to kind of do on the side, and I was expected to do writing as like my main priority. And then I got the opportunity to anchor for Good Day Ithaca, and that kind of completely changed my views on what I wanted to do.
I really enjoy the side of production that isn't seen as much. I guess what kind of drove me towards it was just like the unknown. I really wanted to experience what I don't think that is shown as much, because I felt more well-rounded to know what also happens in front of the camera and behind the camera.
The number one goal that I had, and the one that I always put, like I'm very much somebody that loves to set goals. I always write on the line, tell great stories. Like that's what I wanted to do as soon as I got into ICTV.
After stepping foot on campus, the sky's the limit. For Cam, Leah, Allie, and Grant, experiencing ICTV for the first time was something special.
I remember I got the email that I would be on Next Player Up, and I was like so pumped up, came to studio, and I was so nervous. But it was a cool experience because everybody in there, the upperclassmen were so welcoming, so you got in there and you kind of just went for it. But when you get that 5 count for the first time and you're on ICTV, like it feels like you're on ESPN. It was nuts.
You mentioned that you went into ICTV just for fun. You may have not felt extremely prepared. What was it like going through that process of being new to broadcasting and navigating that whole process in that semester of being an anchor? I felt like everybody made it a really great learning environment, and I got the chance to learn by doing instead of having to like watch other people do it for a couple of years before trying it out by myself.
Beyond the spotlight where the on-air talent shine is a whole other world in ICTV of a crew with sharp minds and fast hands making it all happen.
I was a senior producer for Newswatch, and a lot of people don't really understand that with producing, it is almost an art form, right? You're telling stories in itself, right? The way that you stack a rundown very much matters. You have to be intentional about those things. And so as I became like a correspondent and a reporter and then eventually host of ICTV reports, it was very important that I took all those things with me to make sure that like I could tell great stories in all different aspects in ICTV.
I feel like I've learned so much just in these past 2 semesters that I would have never known my senior year of high school. I think I've bettered my time management because you really have to stick to your deadlines when there's, like, I say I'm editing a highlight, like I have to get that highlight done by the end of the meeting time or else we won't have it ready for the show. It definitely made me appreciate what goes into making a TV show more.
I think as a talent, you know, what we're doing is tough, but it's not as hard as what everybody else is doing behind the scenes. We get to show up on Sunday for Sports Final, write our script, but everybody throughout the week, the APs that are getting their work done, the producers that are planning the show, you know, Brian, who directs the show, has to be locked in at all times. sports final, we always talk to the camera operators and the teleprompter people and just crack jokes and always making it a family-friendly environment with all of us that are in there. Because without it being a team effort with everybody involved, then everything else is going to suffer.
As the nation's oldest student-run cable television station, ICTV has been recognized by College Broadcasters, Inc., the Syracuse Press Club and Society for Professional Journalism, and others. The station has had a long streak of success, and it didn't just come from a well-run show.
I think the success is in great part due to the incredible, dedicated staff of people who are working on it, and they are also dedicated to journalism and producing news, not just national, but also about the city of Ithaca, how dedicated they are to where we are right now. And I think it's a really great resource for the people of Ithaca.
I feel like you don't hear of that much of many schools having like such dedicated students to make sure that they're putting on the best shows that they can. And it's so special to me to be a part of that and to be able to help all of these students and be one of the students like with hands-on, and hearing that like you're on an award-winning show is like, I feel like that's super cool for a college student, and not every student gets to experience that in their time in college.
A thing that a lot of us seniors talk about is Ithaca College and the Park School. We like to, call ourselves kind of gritty because, we're not the big Division I school on the ESPN broadcast at Syracuse or the Arizona States. I think you take that pride in, sometimes you get that little bit of swagger and that doubt of being like the little brother to, all the bigger communication schools. And I think it motivates everybody really well. A Bomber football game, we don't have a network coming in. It's all reliant on us.
Time spent in ICTV allows students to get the reps they need to break into the industry. As reps on the station end for seniors like Cam and Grant, a new generation rises to continue to keep the station going strong.
ICTV is so good at what it does, and because of that, it's led me to opportunities beyond that. I've worked at a small, medium, and large TV market. Currently, I work for a TV news network. And that wouldn't have been possible without this reel and the content that I created here in ICTV.
I think that I've learned so many skills that are going to help me in the future just based on the 2 semesters I've had here, and I can't wait to learn more in my next however many semesters I have left.
Speaking about the next generation, what do you do as a senior to encourage the next generation and keep them going?
I think it's always fun at sports final, just seeing the growth from a lot of the underclassmen from when you guys walked in back in September to now, and how much you guys have all grown. I think for me and Ray, who are on air, to see that is a really cool growth piece, and to give anyone kind of advice about things they can work on air, and to have those conversations and to motivate the underclassmen to improve. I think that's the coolest part about your time at any kind of station, but your time anywhere, is that impact you leave.
I'm so optimistic for the future of ICTV. I mean, the fact that we are still going strong, right? It's the oldest student-run cable television network in the country. The fact that we are still having 20 plus shows on the air shows you we are alive and well. We're still creating great work. And so I think that this thing will keep moving on forever and ever. As long as the school keeps investing in this space and getting us the latest and greatest kind of things so we can keep doing great work, I think ICTV will be around forever and ever.
From first steps to final shows, for every class that comes through ICTV, the story continues. For ICTV Special Reports, I'm Cece Gabriel.
Thank you, Cece. The station's award-winning history is certainly something of note, and is all due to our brilliant student volunteers, many of whom are hardworking women, making a place for themselves in the television industry. Molly Golden is here in the studio with more.
The gender gap in the media industry is wider than you think. In 2022, the Women's Media Center released a report detailing the status of women in the media. They found that among the U.S.'s top 5 Sunday news shows, more than 2/3 of the guests were men. Research and gender representation in primetime broadcast, cable, print, and digital news found that women only told 41% of stories and just 15% of the sports stories. But at ICTV, women have broken the glass ceilings amongst all departments and are setting themselves to be difference makers in the media.
Coming into Ithaca, like I knew they had TV studios and I knew that there was the whole television digital media program. I originally joined radio, and from that I learned about ICTV and I learned about ICTV recruitment night, and that's kind of where I got the first taste of how big the station actually is and how many students are on it. So I feel like coming in, I kind of had no idea until I went to recruitment night.
For Nicole, she has several experiences both in front and behind the camera, and she was able to use her knowledge to better herself as an aspiring media professional.
I think some experience I've had on the station that have really helped me build more confidence and help me know what I want to do with my career have been from producing. I produced a live 1-hour episode of Hold That Thought last year. It was our finale. It was 6 blocks, an hour long, completely live, and I was line producing. So it was quite hectic and quite scary, but honestly, it really taught myself that I know what I'm doing and I can line produce, and like, it really just helped me build my confidence a lot with what I'm doing. And I think being on air really helped with my confidence as well, not just knowing how the studio works, but also just like being confident enough that I know what I'm talking about and I can be in front of a camera and feel comfortable and deliver whatever I'm talking about in a way where the viewers will recognize it. So I think a lot of the things I've done behind the scenes, but as well as the situations I've had in front of this camera has really helped me with my confidence.
Some students, like Allison Dolan, did not think television was the avenue for them when arriving on the South Hill. But now, she cannot picture her college experience without ICTV.
I'm a journalism major. I initially thought for me that was going to mean print journalism, newspaper, the Ithacan, stuff like that. And then I auditioned for ICTV kind of for fun, and I got a really great opportunity, and now it's kind of my priority in the Park School. I think just my first semester getting the opportunity to be a desk anchor for Good Day Ithaca was something that I didn't think would be possible even within my 4 years. So getting an opportunity like that so early and having such an incredible team that believed in me and had the confidence in me kind of was super empowering and really helpful, and helped me throughout to kind of make myself think like, oh, this is really something I can do. This is something I could like make a career off of.
Park alumni Mia O'Brien wasted no time getting involved in the station. Within days of her arrival in her first year, she was on air debating football on the Gridiron Report and began her run as one of the most historic women to walk through the halls of the Park School and Ithaca College.
He goes, "Do you want to be on TV tomorrow?" And I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "Sweet. You're going to be on Grido tomorrow. You're going to be in the 4th and goal debate segment. See you then. Be here by 7. And I was just like, all right, cool. So I have no idea what the Gridiron Report is. I don't even know what ICTV really is.
A couple years later, in her junior year, Mia made history, becoming the first woman to host the Gridiron Report, ICTV's longest-running sports show.
Did the audition in the green room, which was a little untraditional, but they just needed me to call a highlight, whatever. And then the next day, they had the big producer meeting to assign shows, and I came back, and Matt Kempner, the sports director, came down the stairs and shook my hand and said, "Congrats, you're the new host of the Gridiron Report." That was one of the greatest challenges that I had in my college career. And each week, myself, Danny Amiot, our director, who I'm still friends with as well, like we sat down and we were like, okay, how do we raise the bar this week? I was like, we're going to create a B set with a vertical monitor. And I just really started wearing dresses and not wearing power suits like I did throughout my speech and debate career in high school in my first 2 years of ICTV. So like people are like, holy crap, she's doing sports and wearing a dress. Like this is like mind-blowing.
But some have started from the bottom and made their way to the top. For Naomi Sessler, she saw this in her first year when creating and developing ICTV's entertainment news show, Looped In.
Looking back on it now, 4 years have passed, I'm a senior now, that opportunity helped me gain confidence because I kept on pushing through and essentially viewing myself as an underdog and our Looped In team as an underdog to be like, we know that this can work. We know that this can be a great show for the station. It was very hard, and it was a time where I was learning not only how to work in the entertainment industry or just in the industry as a whole, but also how to be a producer, how to do all of these things that during my freshman year, you almost never get the opportunity to get the chance to do that, to create a show from the ground up.
ICTV has produced several powerful women in the media industry, with many more on the way and looking to teach others the same as well.
I've always started off really quiet and observing, and I know that's a very common thing, but start that way if you need to, and then start talking to people slowly, and you can move your way up and realize what you really love to do. ICTV has taught me so many different things, between how to produce, what a rundown is, certain graphics, how they're made, what they're called, and it really works like a real environment.
Having a role in these departments has really helped me know that I have a place in sports and that there are other women in the sports industry that are like me and that I can look up to and follow. Thinking about a career is really scary, but I think doing radio and TV here on a much smaller level have kind of set me up to know the fundamentals of what the industry will be like.
I also think that you have to say yes because you want to be the most versatile. Swiss Army knife was something I branded myself as coming out of college. It's something I still brand myself as, but everybody is now trying to be a Swiss Army knife, whether it's social, whether it's podcast, radio, projects like this. Try a little bit of everything because you never know what's going to actually be your biggest break.
For ICTV Special Reports, I'm Molly Golden.
Thanks, Molly. Coming up, we explore ICTV's connection to American politics through annual coverage of local and national elections. We'll be right back. Welcome back to ICTV Special Reports. Election night coverage has been a staple of ICTV for decades, with Ithaca College students reporting on both local and national elections live on air. Our reporter Ryan Harmon takes us behind the scenes to see what goes into a production of such importance, highlighting the pivot from the 2020 presidential election, which was covered remotely. Ryan breaks down how 2024's election night broadcast came to be.
Good evening, I'm Alec Kraszewski. And I'm John David Ott.
Good evening and welcome to Election Center 1999. I'm Elisa Van Wee.
And I'm Ben Dobson.
Good evening and welcome to The Issues, the Candidates 2004. I'm Lauren Martin.
And I'm Lindsay Knox.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Election Night 2020. I'm your host, Madison Moore.
Welcome to ICTV's special election coverage of the local Ithaca, New York State, and national races. This is Election Night 2024.
Election night coverage has been a staple of ICTV's programming for decades.
An update on the presidential race we'd like to bring you. John Kerry now winning Pennsylvania.
The city of Ithaca, however, maintained its current Democratic trend. Carter took half of the city vote, and Reagan had 36%.
We do know that Mayor Cohen has won another 4-year term as mayor in the city of Ithaca.
Right now, it's looking about 187 for Harris and 230 for Trump. That is our most recent data, as you can see on your screen.
The Democratic nominee, Joe Biden, has 48 Electoral College votes.
Ithaca College Television has covered presidential races that changed the course of history, local mayoral elections that forged a new path forward, and everything in between. But how does it all come together? How does ICTV provide this coverage? To understand how the broadcast came together in 2024, we must begin in 2020 with an election night unlike any other.
We came up with, I want to say we did it over Discord, which is so funny. I remember having so many meetings and talking about all of the technical logistics of how are we going to get on this live stream together and, do this live stream out to Ithaca, Tompkins County. But we're going to have to do it from home.
As the host of Election Night 2020, Madison Moore had a very unique experience anchoring the show.
It was a really interesting time to really have to wait for all of those mail-in ballots to be counted, and just figure out, thinking outside of the box, how do we still provide really important coverage, but in a very different way than they had ever done in the past for ICTV.
The COVID-19 pandemic fundamentally changed the broadcast, and come 2024, the election night team was back in the Park School. Producer and station manager Connor Smith explains how the day began in Park.
It was a long day. We woke up and immediately hit the news, checked out the latest stories, and started kind of building a mock rundown. And the crazy thing is that we initially intended this to be a 1-hour-long show. So we had a bunch of content written out, stories that have happened in the past couple weeks, key insights on all the major components, and obviously on Trump and Harris as well, all of the background info and things that our anchor and our co-anchors could just kind of throw in as we needed to fill time. We wanted to kind of tell a story about what has been happening and also leave room to give that breaking news.
With a plan set on how to cover the news, it came down to the tech team to make it all happen.
It's mostly just for basics. It's just coordinating all of the graphical elements, how you're going to do that in the studio, whether that's graphics or cameras or just the basic studio elements, and then pre-prepping that show for the special elements we did.
I personally made the open animation for election night, which I was super proud of. And I think I also made the verts and the walls. Sometimes I like had my hand in making the walls. Sometimes it becomes really difficult to understand, like, after that, like, really long workday, what you actually did and what other people did.
Spent hours just trying to figure out how we could somehow link our graphics, that magical map we had on the back wall, to a source so someone could live edit that. That was our major graphical thing we had during that show. I mean, we had lots of VOs, packages, so many different interviews, but me and Ethan spent so much time just trying to get Viz to allow us to use a remote control into it, so then we could have an entire news crew edit the graphic live on air.
And following a full day of pre-production, 9:30 arrived, and it was time to go live.
Tonight, we will be breaking down local races, including the race for New York State Assembly, Senate, and Congress. We'll also be breaking down the national races occurring tonight, most significantly tracking the 2024 presidential race between Vice President Kamala Harris.
As I sat at the desk covering the flood of breaking news, the research team was hard at work, providing me with everything I would need.
We had a phone call between me and the two other producers, Connor Smith and Allie Mahoney. We had a live document between myself, a couple members of the research team, and our anchors, Devin Jarvis and Ryan Harmon. And that kind of functioned as we'd have people really just inputting data for the anchors, and then I would be on the phone with Allie communicating exactly how that data should be said, when it should be said, and in some cases, we'd be writing full scripts live.
We had a table of other live researchers, and they were put on, some were put on individual states or specific elections that we were covering, anything that was going to be monumental, and then some were on Senate and some were on House. So we were we all had a huge doc where we were just putting in a bunch of different information and kind of sending it out to the team in the studio.
Right now, Lisa Blunt Rochester and Angela Alsobrooks. These are two candidates that we had talked about earlier. They're both running for Senate in Delaware and Maryland. It is official now, they will be the first female senators to represent their respective states.
As I would field information with the research team, our studio team would continue to bring breaking coverage.
I was working with Ryan Harmon, who was the host of the show, and he and I were just bouncing off of each other. It's funny, we kept pushing for the producers to have us on the big board together because we were so passionate about what was going on that night. And I think, you know, regardless of the result of the election, I think we both just wanted something entertaining to cover and display how much love we had for this night to our audience as well. It was a really, really awesome experience, and I hope to relive it again, hopefully in my final 2 years at Ithaca College after this one, where I can be with a crew who's so passionate, equally passionate about one thing, so passionate about putting on a fantastic product, while also having so much fun with everybody you were assigned next to.
So for the studio, I just came in and introduced my package, and then I hung around and took some pictures. But it was just another thing that was cool is just being able to go in the studio. It was one of the first times that I'd read from a teleprompter or done anything like that. So it was cool to dress up and go in the studio and get thrown to me by our anchors. And it was just one of those things where the experience was super. I didn't know how it was going to go, getting kind of thrown into it with 4 days until I had to turn a package, and then once I was there, it was an experience like really like nothing else that I'd experienced.
It was a lot of fun because working with them, I mean, we had, I think, AirPods in we were using to control back and forth, and they would be like, okay, we got one, and be like, okay, got it. And then some of us were checking CNN and looking like, okay, when is did someone actually release? Okay, we got it in a second later. So it's really cool to be able to see how like we're almost keeping up with CNN and their live updates, and then we'd be like, okay, Ryan, we got this, we're ready. So no, it was more of just me and Ethan going, okay, data center, you got this? And they're like, well, not yet, we almost got it. All right, it's ready, go. And we'd be like, awesome, and send it up.
Meanwhile, in the control room, it was a matter of keeping up with new graphics, informing the team what was next, and even listening closely to what I would say as news broke.
It was high energy, of course. It was really exciting. It was one of the best control rooms I've ever been in. We didn't know what was going to happen. News kept breaking left and right. We were getting calls. Everyone was on the news, checking things out. Communication was really key, and I think we all worked really well together.
Working in the control room, especially on election night, was crazy, but it was definitely a lot of fun, and there was definitely a lot of good energy from everybody. Going into it, I was definitely pretty nervous because there's not too much you can do to prepare, like compared to like a typical news show that we do here at ICTV. But the worries were kind of all for nothing because everybody was on their A game. We had a great group of people working on the show and on the show, so it all went pretty smoothly.
The control room was totally different than the studio energy because the control room is super high stakes, and the directors and the producers were talking through IFBs to the talent, and that was something which was like these people were so locked in and this work was getting done, and it was really cool. But then in the studio, it was so awesome because we ran a pretty much 2-hour long broadcast, and our anchors were off script except for the pre-show pretty much the whole show, and it was really cool to be a part of that because I was there and I was able to see these kind of master anchors go through it and figure out how to call states when we didn't really know that much that was going on. We were just getting live feed from the research team, and it was really cool to experience a studio with a team like that.
All of this playing out for 2 hours, staying on the air, bringing live results to the community, sitting in the front row of history.
Thank you so much to everyone who helped put on tonight's show. I am truly grateful for all of you.
And I remain grateful today. So many people were dedicated to making this show happen, especially the producers. It would not have been possible without them. For ICTV Special Reports, I'm Ryan Harmon.
For 67 years, ICTV has given students career-defining skills, lasting memories, and an impactful college experience. If you love the ICTV mission and want to help support our future media leaders, you can support us at ictv.org/donate. Thank you for your support, and thank you, ICTV, for all you have given thousands of students from 1958 to now. For one last time, I'm Lindsay Peters, and this has been ICTV Special Reports. Have a good night.